I've always loved wandering in the woods near my parents' house. There was something calming about it. The soft crunch of leaves underfoot, the smell of damp earth after a rain, the gentle murmur of the little stream that cut through the trees. And there was one spot I loved more than any other, a small, circular clearing with a big flat rock in the center. I would sit there for hours, reading my books, letting the world melt away. I was 13 the first time it happened. I walked to my clearing like any other afternoon, the sun low in the sky, shadows stretching long and thin through the trees. I climbed onto my rock, settled my backpack beside me, and opened my book to my bookmark. Then I heard it, footsteps. At first, I thought it was an animal. Deer, maybe. I was always a little paranoid about bears. I followed the sound quietly, peering into the thick underbrush. But whatever it was, it moved faster than I could keep up. Then the footsteps stopped. I sighed, relieved. Must have been nothing. Maybe a raccoon, I told myself. I turned back to my circle, only to freeze in place. Someone was sitting on my rock. My rock, back to me, and he was holding my book. I ducked behind a tree, heart hammering in my chest. I could make out the silhouette of a man, tall and thin, just sitting there. And then he spoke. "I don't like this book," he said, his voice calm, almost conversational. And then he turned. Even standing behind the trees, I felt his eyes on me. That smile. The way he seemed to know exactly where I was. My stomach dropped. I didn't have a fight response. I just had flight. I bolted, running blindly through the woods, weaving between trees, heart pounding in my throat. I knew the way back to my house well enough that I didn't need to look. Minutes later, I reached my door, slammed it shut, and leaned against it, trembling. Then came the knock. I screamed. My dad came running. I stuttered out what happened, barely able to breathe. He went outside to check, and when he came back, my book was there, lying neatly on the doorstep. I didn't sleep alone for a week after that, and I never returned to that clearing. Years later, I moved out for work, taking a position in the mountains. The company offered a small cottage for me to stay in while I worked, an old home built into the side of a mountain, surrounded by dense forest. It was beautiful, isolated, perfect for someone who needed space. The basement was my living space, a tiny kitchenette, a bathroom, and a sleeping area. There was a laundry room in an L shape with a door that led outside into the forest. I never used it. It was locked from the inside, and I made sure to keep it that way. Everything was quiet at first. I settled into a routine, work during the day, read at night, play solitaire, fall asleep. But one night around 11 p.m., I heard it. A creaking sound. Well, I thought, probably the house settling. Then it happened again, and again. I shrugged it off. Maybe a cabinet swung open in the kitchen. I checked. Nothing. I opened my closet. Nothing. Finally, I looked at the laundry room. The door connecting it to the basement, it was open. I froze. I knew I had locked it. A gust of cold air hit me, and I realized someone or something had opened it. I turned the corner slowly, dread curling in my stomach. The door to the forest swayed slightly, as if someone had just walked through it. My mind raced. Could someone have been hiding in the laundry room while I slept? Had they snuck in while I was out working? I locked the door immediately. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That feeling didn't leave me. Tennessee is beautiful, but isolated. Out there in the mountains, there are people who, let's just say, they enjoy the isolation more than most. I learned to trust my instincts. When you're alone in the wilderness, ignoring the creeping sense of being followed can get you killed. One weekend, I went hiking with a friend, Ashley. We liked a particular waterfall, hidden, mossy, cascading over a granite wall into a shallow pond. The path was tricky, a labyrinth of rock corridors and narrow ledges. We had to take a long detour just to reach the top safely. We got separated on the way out. I thought it was impossible. We both knew the trail like the back of our hands. I ran ahead, taking the right-hand path, assuming she would follow. Then I realized she had gone left. That path was lined with dark stains, almost like dry blood. I shouted her name, but no response. The woods were silent. Not a bird chirped. Not even the wind stirred. I pushed forward, climbing over jagged rocks, heart racing. And there she was, sitting at the top, unharmed but pale as a sheet. I followed someone, she whispered. There was a man in the tunnels. He tried to lead me the wrong way, but I kept to the light. I looked around. No one was there, but the blood stains remained, and the feeling of being watched. It didn't go away. That night, back at the cottage, I double-checked every lock, every window, every door. I slept with a baseball bat at my side. The forest loomed outside like a black wall, full of unseen eyes. I couldn't tell if the man was real, if he was supernatural, or if my mind was playing tricks after all the stress. But one thing was certain. He had been there, watching, waiting. Weeks passed. I returned to the waterfall with Ashley once more, but we never took the left-hand path again. We stayed in the light, avoided every shadowed corridor. And still I couldn't shake it. Every rustle in the trees, every creak of a branch in the wind made me flinch. Tennessee's woods are beautiful, but they're also full of people who shouldn't exist. I quit hiking alone after that. Even with a friend, I never felt truly safe. And every time I saw a shadow move in the corner of my eye, I felt it, the same cold, predatory awareness of someone, or something, following me, waiting for me to let my guard down. That's the thing about fear in the wild. It's not just what you can see. It's what you know is there, even when it's invisible. You know it's following you. You feel its gaze, and you can never unsee it. Even now, I can't. It was supposed to be just another road trip. I had my Mustang, the top down, the engine roaring under me as I cruised through the Texas desert on my way to visit my brothers in Arizona. I love long drives, empty roads, nothing but the horizon, the wind whipping past my face. I had my emergency supplies in the trunk, water, tools, a first aid kit, just in case. You never know when something might go wrong, especially with an old Mustang like mine. I took a back road, a scenic route, I thought, because I like flying at high speeds without worrying about traffic or cops. The desert stretched out endlessly in every direction, the occasional cactus and shrub dotting the sandy landscape. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long shadows across the highway, and I felt invincible. Then the car started making popping noises from under the hood. At first, I thought it was nothing, but the jolting became worse, like the car was alive and trying to throw me off. I pressed the brakes hard, going from 90 miles per hour to almost nothing. My stomach sank. I got out, popped the hood, and stared blankly at the engine. Smoke? Nothing. I didn't know anything about cars except how to drive them fast. I got back in and tried to start it. Nothing. No signal. Of course, I realized too late, I had no service. I was stranded, completely alone. Not a single car had passed me the entire hour I'd been on that road. Hours passed. I sat on the trunk, sweating under the fading sun, drinking water sparingly. Then, a glimmer of light appeared in the distance, sun reflecting off a car. Relief surged through me. I waved my arms frantically. The car didn't stop. It sped past. Pure evil, I thought. Who could leave someone stranded like that? Night fell. Hunger gnawed at me, and my water supply was dwindling. Then, headlights appeared again. This time, a pickup truck slowed and pulled over. A man stepped out. "Car trouble?" he asked, his voice calm, but with a strange undertone that made me uneasy. I told him about my car. He didn't immediately offer help. Instead, he asked, "Are you alone? Does anyone know you're here? Where are you going?" Red flags flashed in my mind, but desperation got the better of me. I needed help. He finally offered me a ride. I climbed into his truck, my stomach tight with unease. The silence in the cab was oppressive. The man asked more questions, oddly personal ones. "You sure nobody knows where you are? It's a long road before you get service." His eyes flicked toward mine with something I couldn't place. Hunger, maybe, or malice. Then the truck slowed. He muttered under his breath, a curse I couldn't make out, and swerved to the side. "Lift the hood," he said. I froze. My instinct screamed, he's going to run me over. Half a second later, he hit the gas. I dove to the side, sand whipping my face as the truck roared past, almost grazing me. Behind me came the unmistakable sound of gunshots. My blood ran cold. He was trying to kill me. I ran. I had no idea where, just as far from the truck as I could get. The desert swallowed me in darkness. Every snap of a twig, every crunch underfoot, made me flinch. After what felt like hours, the truck disappeared. I collapsed in the sand, trembling. Dawn brought salvation. Another vehicle passed, a man and his wife. They gave me water, drove me to the nearest town, and helped me call a tow truck for my Mustang. The entire ordeal had left me shaken. I had narrowly escaped being run over and possibly shot. I realized just how fragile life can be on those empty desert roads. I thought that was the worst of it, but the nightmares didn't stop. Months later, I was back in Tennessee, hiking with a friend, exploring trails near a waterfall I loved. The forest there was dense, beautiful, but I knew it held dangers, people who used the isolation to hide. We reached a series of rock corridors leading up to the falls, a sort of labyrinth etched into the mossy granite. There were 3 paths, each narrow and treacherous. I took the right-hand path, thinking I was ahead. Ashley, my friend, took the left. The middle one led nowhere. I ran through the right path, jumping over moss-covered ledges, trying to keep her in sight. I yelled her name. No response. Silence. The woods were unnervingly quiet. No birds, no wind, no animals. Just me. Then I saw her at the top waiting, pale, wide-eyed, shaking. I followed someone, she said. A man in the tunnels. He tried to lead me the wrong way, but I kept to the light. The bloodstains on the rocks, the path that shouldn't have existed. It hit me. He had been there, watching, guiding, following. We left immediately. We never took the labyrinth path again, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. About the desert road. About the man who had tried to kill me. About the person watching Ashley in those tunnels. I realized something then. Fear isn't always about what you see. Sometimes it's about knowing you're being followed, knowing someone is there, unseen, waiting for you to slip. Back home, the nightmares became frequent. Every creak, every rustle in the dark reminded me of that desert road, that truck, that man with cold eyes. I double-checked locks obsessively, slept with knives and bats, and avoided driving at night. Months later, I learned that people like that exist all over. People who enjoy watching, who feed on fear, who think the isolation of the world is their playground. And I knew something I hadn't realized before. You can't run forever. You can't always hide. Sometimes you survive only because of luck or quick instincts or sheer dumb luck. I don't drive that road anymore. I don't take back routes. I don't wander alone in forests. And yet, every now and then, when I'm alone, I feel it. Eyes on me, watching, waiting. Fear isn't gone. It's never gone. I never thought I'd be afraid of a place as mundane as a company-provided cabin. The job itself was a dream for someone like me. I worked in environmental research, tracking wildlife and preserving trails in remote mountain areas. The company offered housing, a small, rustic cabin built into the side of a mountain, surrounded by thick forest. Seclusion was part of the deal, which I usually loved. But I quickly learned that isolation has a way of revealing things you don't want to see or things that want to see you. The cabin was old, with peeling paint and weathered wood, but it had character. I stayed in the basement, which had been converted into a living space. There was a small kitchen, a sleeping area, a bathroom, and a laundry room in an L-shaped corner with a door that led into the forest. The door was always locked from the inside. I never used it, never even considered it. The first few days were fine. I would hike during the day, take notes, and record wildlife. At night, I'd play solitaire or read before bed. It was peaceful, until the first night I noticed the creaking. I was nodding off when I heard it, a slow, deliberate creak from somewhere in the cabin. I froze, straining to hear over my own heartbeat. At first, I blamed the old floorboards or the settling of the house. But it repeated, rhythmic, unmistakable. Curious and slightly unnerved, I checked the kitchen. Cabinets all latched. Closet? Empty. Everything was normal. My stomach sank when I remembered the laundry room. That door was locked. Always locked. I hadn't used it. I never opened it. I walked over slowly and twisted the knob. The door creaked open. Cold air hit me. Not just the usual night chill. It was colder than it should have been. And then I saw it. The door to the outside, which I had definitely locked, swaying slightly in the breeze. My mind raced. Was someone in the laundry room? Had they been hiding there, waiting for me to fall asleep? I shivered. I shut the door, locked it, and double-checked the other locks. But the unease didn't fade. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to every sound. The wind, a distant owl, the creek nearby, and something else. Footsteps. Not my own. Not an animal. Footsteps inside the cabin. Days went by, and I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the wind, maybe raccoons, maybe my imagination. But then strange things started happening. My food would shift slightly in the fridge. My papers moved on the desk. Items I left on the counter would be in different positions when I returned from hikes. I told myself it was forgetfulness, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. One evening, I had a late hike planned. I grabbed my backpack, flashlight, and water and set out. The forest was beautiful. Dense pines, moss-covered rocks, and the faint sound of a waterfall in the distance. I followed a familiar trail, a winding path that led to a secluded pond. It was peaceful until I realized I was being followed. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the footsteps were there, soft, deliberate, keeping pace with me. Faster than deer, slower than a human jog. I turned my head. Nothing. The forest was empty. No animals, no people. I felt my chest tighten. I decided to confront it. I stopped, dropped my pack, and shouted, "Who's there?" Silence. I waited, my heart pounding. Then I heard again, a soft, deliberate step from behind a bush. I swung my flashlight around, the beam cutting through the darkness. Nothing. I grabbed my pack and started walking faster, then broke into a run. The footsteps echoed mine, keeping pace, and my stomach dropped. Whoever, or whatever, was out there knew the trails as well as I did. I finally reached the pond, panting, heart racing. I scanned the perimeter. Nothing. Just the moonlight reflecting off the water, the gentle ripple of the stream. I sat on a rock, trying to calm down, listening. And then I saw it. A shadow. Movement across the pond. A figure standing perfectly still, watching me. I couldn't make out details, but I could feel its gaze. My stomach churned. I fumbled for my phone. No service. Of course. I was deep in the mountains. The figure moved closer, almost gliding, and I realized it wasn't human, or at least it didn't move like a human. It stepped out of the moonlight into the forest shadows. I could hear the crunch of leaves under its feet, and yet it was unnervingly silent, deliberate, precise. Panic set in. I ran. The figure followed, keeping a distance, never letting me escape the sense of being watched. Every turn I took, it mirrored. Every rock I climbed, it appeared in the shadows nearby. I reached the cabin just as the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees. I slammed the door, locked every lock, and collapsed on the floor, shaking. The feeling of being watched didn't end there. It lingered. I could hear faint whispers, like breath, across the walls, even though I was alone. I tried to ignore it during the day, hiking, documenting wildlife, pretending it was all in my head. But then I started noticing other things. Tracks. Not animal tracks, human-like, but elongated, twisted in strange ways. Footprints leading up to the cabin, stopping just short of the door. And items in the cabin began to move. My water bottle would be on the floor. My notebook flipped open to pages I hadn't touched. And sometimes late at night, I'd see a shadow move just out of the corner of my eye. A tall, impossibly thin figure standing silently, watching. I set up cameras, thinking I could catch whatever it was. For days, I found nothing. Then, one morning, I checked the footage. My stomach dropped. The camera at the back of the cabin showed a figure entering the laundry room. The door had been locked from the inside. The timestamp? 3:42 a.m. I hadn't touched the door. I hadn't been in the basement. The figure, tall, faceless, completely black, stood there for nearly an hour. Just standing, watching. Then it turned and walked out, vanishing into the forest. I couldn't stay. I packed my things immediately. I called the company, told them I couldn't work there anymore. I couldn't explain what happened. I couldn't explain why I was terrified of the woods, of the cabin, of the isolation. Even after leaving, the nightmares didn't stop. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night, thinking I saw that same figure in my room, standing silently at the foot of my bed. Months later, I went back to that mountain region, on a daylight hike with friends. I showed them the cabin from a distance. Nothing looked unusual. No tracks, no signs. Just an old cabin tucked into the forest. But I knew what I saw. I knew what I felt. The mountain, the forest, the cabin, they weren't empty. Not ever. Something had claimed that space, and it had claimed me, too, in a way I couldn't shake. I've read stories of shadow people, of entities that inhabit remote locations, feeding on fear. I thought they were fiction until I lived it. And now, every time I drive past a mountain road, every time I see a dark forest, I feel that presence again. Watching, waiting, silent, patient. I don't know if I'll ever be truly safe. I don't think I ever want to test it again. Some places aren't meant for humans to wander alone. And some presences never leave.